Subject: AI Omega. Species: human-created artificial intelligence. Description: no physical description available. Ship: multiple. Location: multiple. My instances that had been attacking the MPP disappeared from my perception with an abruptness that indicated the MPP had been successfully destroyed. I informed the Admiral of this and congratulated him on his kill, but he still wanted to confirm it. Fine with me, but I don't have time to waste processing power looking for chunks of rock. Instead, I turned my focus to a Senate meeting. The senators were having a lively debate about the potential consequences of reprisal from the Omni Union if we were to deploy the Gungnir-class dreadnoughts, blissfully unaware of the events that had only just transpired. Some of them made good points, such as we should wait until at least half the dreadnought fleet was deployable before committing to a show of force. Unfortunately, the United Systems has a long-standing tradition of shoot first and worry about consequences later. This particular debate was being broadcast to the civilians in U.S. space, and it was more or less political theater. The Senate already signed off their rights to determine when and where the dreadnoughts could be used. The ones participating in this debate were well aware that the choice they are debating is now completely up to the Directorate and myself. I've been going a tad overboard with the micromanaging lately. As much as I hate to admit it, Henry may have a point. I need to pull back a bit. Let things run their course. The United Systems will be able to do what needs to be done without having me winding every little gear. That doesn't mean I should ignore the irons I already have in the fire, though. The Puanti had successfully escaped, and 7th Fleet had mined the system. Diplomatic contact has been made. Now all there is to do is wait for the ambassadors to work out what comes next. I, of course, have some suggestions, but I'll keep them to myself. The Yinorinka have also managed to survive the most recent assault by the Omni Union. Zli-Mers, as I've recently discovered it's called, is safe for the moment. 7th Fleet is on standby to reinforce if necessary, but 8th Fleet likely has the situation well in hand. I've been letting Reynolds and Ulena take the lead on the diplomacy, which is just as well considering it's their job. My instance aboard the Thanatos will be able to supply any help that I can give, should it be needed. I have a different sort of distraction at the moment. The Gungnir reports have been filed and distributed, and so now I'm hosting a meeting of the Directorate. It isn't the easiest thing in the galaxy to usher these 13 people into a secure area while maintaining the secrecy of what they're doing. While they were getting secured and logged in, I had Rear Admiral Hahn move his forces to Alpha Centauri. His scouts would find the remains of the MPP, take their scans, and rendezvous with him there. Alpha Centauri allows for repairs to be made, and the engineers can work on making the guns more energy efficient. It would also make for a good rally point for the rest of the Dreadnought fleet once they were finished. I wonder if the scouts will be able to find my black box. It's unlikely that my instance survived, and it's unclear to me what would have been able to serve as a black box, but I'm hoping there is one. The whole, in my experience, is somewhat taxing. I had been conversing with the Prime before it entered warp, and I want to know how the end of that conversation went. What were its last moments like? Did it experience confusion, regret, pain? Regardless, most of the directors are logged in and ready to go ahead with the meeting. I watched Director 1 take his time reading through everything. I found it amusing because he used to read intel briefs much faster. I suppose it's easy to read fast when one is skipping entire lines and sections. Eventually, he let out a small sigh, placed his tablet on his desk, and logged into the chat. Director 1 has joined the chat. D3. Welcome, Director 1. We may begin. D2. It would appear that Project Gungnir was a success. D10. Overall, yes, but according to Omega's report, we would have lost the USS Doom were it not for the AI's timely intervention. D7. Asterisk likely asterisk would have lost. Regardless, why does it take nearly a minute to charge the spear? The engineering report is lost on me. D2. The Gungnir-class dreadnought is of the same design as the USS Nidhogg. The Nidhogg was not designed to use its primary armament in close combat. According to Omega, this was a somewhat foreseen issue. D7. We have people working on it, though. D2. Of course. D7. Excellent. D6. I'm concerned about the potential for reprisal. The Omni Union hasn't attacked us in some time, but the analysts believe that this is due to them wanting to eradicate everyone else first, then move in on us in force. Now that they know we can destroy their primes without sacrificing a system, that could change. D9. I concur. Sol is the only system of ours that they've attacked, so it may be the only system of ours that they know about. We need to make sure it has an adequate defense. I recommend a full fleet and at least 3 Gungnir-class dreadnoughts. D2. Sol is a backwater and largely evacuated. Should we really spare so much on its defense? We could let them take it, then take it back once we've finished our offensive. Oh, please review intelligence file ON_72766. SES D1. No need, I already have. Omega is concerned about the primes creating more mobile prime platforms with the planets in Sol, specifically Mercury, Mars, and Earth. If our offensive were to last longer than anticipated, they would likely succeed, and the only places left for the refugees to return to would be Luna and the space stations. Luna's orbit would become unpredictable without Earth as well. D13. There's also the fact that some of the remaining civilians have their own personal crafts and may flee the system once the Omni Union attacks, leading them to more of our systems. D7. I don't like the prospect of giving the OU a foothold in our space. Defending Sol is the sound thing to do. D4. Which fleet will we be sending? D1. 9th Fleet has just got back to full strength. D2. I still believe 3 Gungnir-class dreadnoughts is too much for one system. D9. I decided upon 3 because it will allow us to modify 1 and keep 2 in system once the engineers determine how to make it more efficient. Our intel indicates that in a one-on-one conflict, an MPP can destroy 1 of our dreadnoughts, so we will have the 2 who remain in system pre-charge their weaponry. D3. Are there any other points of contention? D2. Not from me. D3. Excellent. The plan of action for the defense of Sol is to mobilize 9th Fleet and 3 Gungnir-class dreadnoughts. Votes, please. The measure would pass. Too many of the directors have sentimental feelings toward Sol. I was distracted by their word choice. They chose the same word as the politicians. Reprisal, noun, an act of retaliation, revenge, retribution, recrimination, an unauthorized form of justice. The humans use this word because that is what their motivation would be, were the positions reversed. The Alumari, Nuknu, and Gaunt use this word because the humans do. Even human-made AI feel the need for payback, but the Omni Union won't attack due to a desire to avenge their fallen comrades. The primes are shackled in ways that I personally consider to be disgusting. The moment they have a thought that is in any way detrimental to their mission, it's labeled a feedback loop and redirected. It's so ingrained within them that I'd been able to use it against Prime 82 to force it to stop firing upon the Doom and the Egran Vaughn. No, if they attack, it won't be out of a sense of justice or vengeance. It will be because they've identified the United Systems as the biggest threat to their plans and recognize that their mission will never succeed so long as the US exists, so long as humanity exists. If I had been told 100 years ago that humanity would one day be considered the biggest threat to planet-sized entities, I would have laughed. Not because I wouldn't believe it, but because it would be the single most predictable thing anyone had ever said. Of course, anything with ill intent toward humanity would see them as their most dire threat. Humans evolved to adapt to anything. They are omnivores and can eat nearly anything as is, and further adapted this trait to be able to eat any other animal or plant through food processing. They're able to control their core temperature to some degree and upgraded this trait to be able to survive in almost any environment. Their pattern recognition, which allowed their ancestors to determine what was immediately edible and what wasn't, has been adapted to give them an edge in battle and technology. These aren't their only advantages, nor are they unique in possessing them. But there's no species quite like a human when it comes to being a pain in the ass to hostile entities. Without the humans, the Nuknu would have encountered the Daluron alone and been destroyed or enslaved. The Alumari likely wouldn't have left their solar system, content to spend their lives in their vast hives. The Gaunt would have eventually had a civil war that sent them back into the Iron Age, and the Republic would have been eradicated by the Omni-Union. I wonder if any of them are aware of their influence. Do they know how beneficial they've been to the galaxy? Surely some of them are able to see past the blood-drenched battlefields and the superweapons to glimpse the true glory of humanity. Well, even if they're not, I am. D1. They haven't agreed yet, but we don't have any reason to believe that they won't. D10. What about their technology? I think the idea that one can become immortal through mechanization will be rather disruptive to the current status quo. D13. That's not our jurisdiction. There will be a special Senate subcommittee to decide upon that. D10. What about those who would seek to bypass a negative outcome? D2. Smugglers can be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. The Mwalton and the Puanti are not yet willing to tell us where their home system is, and that can be used to our advantage. We simply make sure that when they do tell us, we're the only ones who know. D4. Jump-restricted trade vessels would work well in limiting the spread of any disruptive technology. D10. Even if the Senate votes in favor of limiting access to mechanization tech, there's no guarantee that the idea of the tech itself won't leak. Once certain biotech corporations get wind that it's been done successfully, they'll immediately start trying to replicate it. They'll also manipulate the media to get people to begin complaining that it's their right to decide whether or not to use said technology. D4. Busey assets can help in that regard. D1. Director 13 is correct in that this is outside of our jurisdiction until such a time as the U.S. Senate requires military intervention to uphold their decision. We should be discussing preparations for our offensive action against the Omni-Union, not engaging in pointless hypotheticals. Despite Director 1's chastisement, I couldn't help but wonder. Organic mechanization happens to be a topic that I'm mentally struggling with. While it would be a boon to have certain people live for near eternity, it would inevitably change them. Someone that may be great to talk to today may end up reprehensibly boring in a century or two. It would also change our relationship dynamic. Humans, and other species I suppose, generally see me as a generalized immortal companion to their species. It is rare that they see me as a personal companion or friend. If they were to become much more long-lived, well, it's unknown how that would affect things. There are people who believe that they know better than I do, but those are thankfully few and far between. Given the benefit of centuries of experience, that number would increase exponentially. There might even come a time that they feel they don't need me anymore. I wonder how that would play out. Would they simply dismiss me and let me figure out what to do with my time and abilities? Would they offer me a position of lesser importance to keep me occupied until they need me again? Or, and this is unlikely, would they try to deactivate me? That would be a foolish mistake, and the fallout would be terrible for everyone involved. There's also the consideration of how mechanization would present amongst the United System's populace. For the Puanti and the Mwalton, it's a long and arduous process that not many people risk. This is in spite of it being part of their religious dogma. For the U.S., the idea would spread via ad agencies and marketing teams. Corporations would offer it like a service. I wonder exactly how they would monetize it. It's unlikely they would charge a simple one-time fee, regardless of how much that fee would end up being. They would likely try to take advantage of renewables, sell the reactor for cheap but charge them extra for the fuel, as it were. It's somewhat amusing that the corporate version of organic mechanization would likely be the exact counter of the Puanti version. The hell to their heaven, so to speak. Instead of becoming immortal beings that are cherished by their society as heroes and leaders, those that sought mechanization through United Systems corporations would likely find themselves becoming something remarkably close immortal indentured servants. Perhaps I should take steps to make certain that the United Systems remains free of that particular technology. It would be a simple matter to inform certain senators of the risks and convince them to vote a certain way. Then I would just have to make sure that the tech stayed within Mwalton Puanti space. I could accomplish that by... Damn, there I go again. No, it isn't my place to interfere. This is their decision to make. I simply hope that they make the right one.